Today's talk is entitled Man-Made Structures on Mars, the Golf Ball Crater, and Monoliths. This comes from our research and the 10 years in which we collected data and the 20 years in which I've been studying what I would class as the energy of creation and its function and interaction with matter, basically. And so for those people who don't know anything about the golf ball crater, this was discovered by Orbiter, the orbiter that was traveling around Mars, and this is a large impact crater with what science, the current science theory for it, and there are many reasons that I'll discuss why that theory is in place, is that it is a sand dune that has formed inside what was a previous impact crater from a period before the sand dune formed. I will argue that case. The UFOologists will say that it's a man-made structure because it does look like a man-made structure, but I can reassure you that it isn't. There are also things that look like glass tunnels, and these things can't really be explained in geological terms. To me, it's just fusing of energy to the wave format. And there are structures which are unusual, but they form part of my predictive data that I knew they would be there. I particularly went to the Spirit and Rover images that landed on Mars to look for these particular things. So there are also upright structures. They class them as monoliths. Some people reckon that they're man-made multi-story buildings or something, because science can't explain how they form. I can from the data. So really what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to just explain how this thing works, so that we can't be led by the nose by science, sort of trying to sweep it under the carpet, and the UFO or the aliens or whatever built these structures on Mars, because both are wrong thinking. Let me just reconfirm that. Without the research into the Orbar wave, those are the only conclusions you can come to. With the research, and basically more people should engage in this, there should be major funding for it, then you'll realize the true nature of the universe, but there will be many casualties of current day science, and also the UFO people won't even like it, because a lot of what they're seeing is just the Orbar wave in action. And so what we've got is the Hans Glaser woodcut. We have the orb and the bar. The orbs fall out of the tubes. They fall from the sky. They're steaming. Pretty simple, really. All of these things are within our data. I'm not going to post any of our data on this. There's no need to. I've plenty of stuff on the internet from my channel. So, just to refresh this, because there'll be new viewers viewing this, what we've put together is a little collage of how this thing works. So you can have a volcanic eruption, the dust goes into the atmosphere, the particles collide with each other, causing electrical charge. Lightning is formed. It strikes orbs in that atmosphere, the dust charges to the orb, and the stones fall from the sky. So that is the theory, the orb fugue-like theory. Some of them will be solid, some of them will be hollow, some will have a spongy material in them. So what I want to show is a little demonstration of it. So what we've got is a pile of flour, and we have a balloon. I put this up on the other ones because people seem to struggle with the concepts of this. So now I'm rubbing it on my head. This is an increased charge. The orb is now charged. As we run the charged balloon over the particle, which is dust or silicate or whatever you want to do, it sticks to the surface of the balloon. And the increased charge then causes the orb to fuse electrically or electromagnetically, depending, and then they fall from the sky, as in the Hans Glazier woodcut. You can see that in the bottom image there. And you can also see in his woodcut little tiny impacts where these things have fallen and disappeared, probably because they weren't charged enough together, and so the substance fall apart on impact. The ones that are charged electrically by lightning, they'll hit the floor and they'll be really hard. Some of these will just be charged together through the charge of the dust holding it together, and when it falls, they fall apart. So I want to take you on to so now we have a mechanism for the golf ball crater, and I want to take you on to the samples that I've purchased from the Utah, and I want to explain how this occurs in dust storms. So you get a dust storm. These particles rise into the atmosphere. The electrical effect occurs, which charges the balloon or the orb, as you see in the center of the photograph. The dust then sticks to the orb, and these things that the Hopi call thunderbolts fall from the sky. And so I've purchased samples. I want to talk about this sample a little bit before I start. Some of these are hollow inside with nothing inside them. So I would suggest that because of the nature of how hard they are, they were struck by lightning. The internal you can scrape out with a spoon, and it is a fine powdered sand. So there are titanium in the outer sphere, and there's silicate or Utah sand in the inner sphere. Now, the current model is a concretion. The concretion cannot do this. These are hollow inside. The sand is very, very fresh. It can be scraped out. It can be spread, and then it reforms itself. Nothing is joined together. So it is not a geological earth process, because heat and pressure would have collapsed the sphere and applied heat and pressure to the center. The center hasn't had any heat and pressure. So what they hold up as a model is not correct. And obviously, if you have a look at further images of the sand from the Utah, you will see that it's the same sand. So geologically, this is not millions and millions of years old. It is as old as the sand that is in Utah, that it fell on. These have not been eroded out of rock. These have fallen from the sky. And they sit on the surface of these sand and rocky outcrops. So in these electrical dust storms, when the particles collide, it creates charge and these stones fall from the sky. Like the Hopi told us. Like the 18th century idea of stones forming in the sky and falling from the sky. Nothing new here. You know, all we've done is ignored what they knew. We have been so arrogant in science that we have dismissed what we were told by our ancestors. Doesn't matter whether it's thousands of years ago or even as a scientific idea of the 18th century. And so, if you have a look at that image, some of that dust is, some of the sand from the middle is now spread fine and spread over the sheet, and you can see the similarity in the colours from the Utah is pretty damn obvious. Child would get it, but science doesn't. So these stone spheres fall from the sky. And so this is a latest publication from 2010, I think it is. Nature, I think it appears in. Swirling dust shocks physicists. What they're trying to do is talk about a build-up of charge in tephra or silicate. The particles of silicate. It's described pretty simply as the particles. Insulating particles become charged through a series of collisions. So we have the dust, we have the Utah sand inside the sphere, we have the sphere that is on the surface, we have the charge mechanism. So we have all those things in place. But of course, what happens is it flies in the face of the Big Bang. The Orr-Bar wave forming planets and various other things flies in the face of the Big Bang. And they want a linear mechanistic, and they want a dead God, and they don't want a creative force, and they don't want this prana chi or life force being present throughout the universe. That is for another video. I've talked about the life force before. And so you're going to say, oh, well, where's there any evidence? Well, there's plenty of evidence. In 1921, these stone spheres fell for 4 months. There's Hans Glazier's record of his event that I've had translated. These are just a couple. But I just want to refer to the latest stone that fell from the sky early this year. Look at the size of it in that man's hand. He was walking, basically he was walking through a field. He heard a thud, he went to the thud, and there was a stone. That stone he holds in his hand had just fallen from the sky, and steam was coming out of it. So exactly the same as Hans Glazier. Nothing different. These are genuine, farmer, ordinary people seeing it. Oh no, but they haven't got a doctorate. I believe this man. Why should I think that this man is a liar? Why should I ridicule this man? Why should I ridicule Hans Glazier when he talks about the effects of what the 300 or 400 villagers saw? Because we're arrogant. That is the reason. We will dismiss this man. Oh, he's a simple farmer. Let's ridicule him. Unfortunately, this is a reasonable account for what he saw. He holds the evidence in his hand, and science has lost its way. It has been led by the nose. So I want to cover the arrogance of science. I belong to this forum. It's a Bad Astronomy and Universe Today forum. And unfortunately, it should be, the owners of that site should be called bad astronomers. Because that's what they are. They have no open mind. They have a closed mind. And so I wanted to comment about the golf ball crater when it was first found. You can see the posting date of 2004. I probably joined a little bit later than that, I would have thought. But this golf ball crater. And so obviously with these posts, so I posted a number of the images and the theories, and the forum was blocked, and I was threatened with regulation and kicking off the forum or whatever. And I just left it because, there's no need. There's no need for me to explain 20 years of research to people who are not prepared to listen to anything. However much evidence you can show them, You know, that man, that farmer in the field, Hans Glazier, me, we're all idiots. But obviously they're arrogant. So I'll come to the quotes. An object this big would have. So we're talking now about the golf ball crater, which the UFOologists believe it's a grow dome or some geodome, and the scientists believe it's a sand dune. So this is why they can't make head nor tail of it. An object this big would have made a much larger crater, unless it was hollow. Well, we've already seen the hollow spheres anyway, so yeah, it probably is hollow. An object coming in at 20,000 miles per hour would have carved the crater a half-mile wide. So the crater is not probably double the size of the thing that's inside the crater. Don't know what it is, but if it came from space at a high velocity, then it should have made a bigger crater. You know, so what it's saying is that it's not coming in at 20,000 miles an hour, and if it did, then it would create a bigger crater. It can't be an impactor from space. Suppose it could be a part of another impactor that fell back to the surface. And then, of course, that brings in problems that if an impactor hits and then it falls back down to the surface as a secondary thing, moving slower, it wouldn't be round because it would be a particle that's blown off it. You know, like a fragment is blown to pieces and then fallen. I would think the uniform roundness of this object would rule out the secondary impactor. As for it being hollow, an impact velocity would probably destroy the uniform object as well. That's providing it's not just falling from the sky. It's not travelling at 20,000 miles because it's forming in dust. It simply answered. And of course, because I was posting in these terms, they kicked me. They locked the forum thread. They didn't kick me off, but they locked the forum thread. So here's one of these geodes. This was a sample that I took. There was a crack in it, so it was easy to split. The other ones are too big and they're too hard. So the crack in it actually meant that the hollow inside this one had filled up with sediment. And you could see the difference in sediment. But there were a lot of them there that were hollow. And so I've taken those samples. Really, I haven't bothered to further the research on them. They're on thin section. And we have these hollow boulders all over the place. You know, they found them in Bosnia as well. So they're hollow, as I say. And of course, that these neglected geological anomalies, as this, you know, it's an older publication, but it's a hand drawing and suggesting that these all, you know, something that geologists don't like, something that they come a bit of waffle about. They come up with theories that don't work, but equally, these things falling from the sky or forming electrically is certainly not on the table with geologists. And so, what I'd like to do is show you the golf ball crater. I've scaled it up. It's 42 pixels wide. That makes it 192 meters wide. And I think anybody can see that that is... I know it's a smaller image, but I can see that that looks like an impactor. So, rather than it being a sand dune inside an impact crater, it is a hard object that caused the impact. So what I did is I looked over all the images of the orbiter, and what we have is different these spheres that fell from the sky, and over time the wind has blown sand over them to cover them. So these are like a golf ball in a sand pit, and the wind and the time of erosion has blown to cover them. You can see the similarity. So this one is the top right hand is a fairly pristine condition, and over time the sand is blown over the top. We can also see the smaller ones of these on the surface. So these are not geodomes. Aliens have built these structures. These have just fallen from the sky. And so, to me, it's pretty simple that the fusing of matter to orbs creates these spheroids that fall from the sky. So they vary in age. Here's one that's fallen from the sky into a bit of sediment and, fixed itself. In Bosnia, this one is. Again, because there's no mechanism, nobody's going to come up with stone spheres falling from the sky. It flies in the face of all science, in fact. So I spent some time exploring on some of this is the spirit image, and I found these stone spheres on the hardened surface. So they've fallen not into a majorly dusty area. They formed into a rocky area, and you can see it sitting on the top, which is what you would expect. So it's on the home plate Bonstella panorama from Spirit. So that is your golf ball crater. It is not a man-made object. It is a natural object, but it is from a scientific process which is not understood. So now what I want to do is I want to talk about the monoliths. And what we have here is a bar that fires out of the floor. And you say, well, what are these bars? These are bars of the all-bar wave process. So what I've done is I put a little video together, and in that video I have the equivalent of your atmospheric dust or silicate or whatever, and what I'm going to do in this video, I'm going to be quiet now because you can hear the fizzing sound that many of the UFOs hear when they meet this spaceship, but all it is the particle attaching to the charge of the bar or the orb. So I'm going to be quiet in there. So what I've done is I've rubbed the long balloon on my hair, I pass it over dust, and you can hear the fizzing. You should probably be able to hear the fizzing sound. So I'm going to be quiet for the next few minutes, and you'll be able to hear that fizzing sound. So I'm not sure if anyone could hear that. My recording system is not the best quality. So what we have is a particle then sticking to the bar. So now what you've got to imagine is these bars now, when they're struck by lightning, some will fall flat, but some, as they're struck, will create a heavy end, and so they will fall like an arrow from the sky. So all you have to do then is do a web search, monoliths on Mars, and you'll see these bars stuck into the surface of Mars. These are described as man-made objects of living towers or whatever have been built, and unfortunately that is also wrong. These are a naturally occurring bar which is fused and fallen from the sky, mistaken for man-made objects. And so what we look at is you can have a look at the bar. There's a collage of images here together. One is one of the solid bars that was taken at Rollright Stones. One is the Mars bar, and that isn't a confectionery Mars bar, that they thought was a piece of Martian wood, but of course it's just a fuse bar that's fallen to the surface. These have been scaled out, and they are 7 kilometers high. As an estimate, based on the amount of pixels within the image and how many pixels formulate that bar that's stuck into the ground, casting the shadow. And so these monoliths are just bars that have been fused in an electrical effect, where silicate is stuck to its surface, fused, and is fallen stuck into the planet. So we have a lot of these anomalies. Some of these are on Earth. They vary in different sizes. So you've got 7 kilometers, or you've got 2.5 centimeters. Some will be hollow. That depends on the structure of the bar. We have the inflated bar, which we would class as the closed string bar, which causes the inflation of the tube, and therefore you get a hollow tube. Or you go the open string bar, which is made up of a single orb, and that creates the earlier image that we were looking at, which looks more like a solid bar. And so, unfortunately for your UFOologists, or whatever you want to call them, and science, both don't have the answers. None of these are man-made. They are born of the Earth's and the universe's processes that we do not understand, and our ancient ancestors did. I wrote a book in 2006. It's pretty boring. It doesn't contain all of this theory now. Most of the theory is generated from years of study, but it's more of an observational book. It can be purchased at a very cheap price of $3.99. And for anyone interested, it's just a research book. It's boring, to be honest, but it may help people to understand that when we see this again in the sky, remember it's not aliens in spaceships, and that we can have stone seers and bars falling from the sky when the electrical conditions are right. Thank you very much, everyone, for listening, and I look forward to posting some future videos. Thank you. Goodbye.